Previously Yuya is despised by everyone in life for his looks, even his nuclear family reject him. However, his granddad continued to care for him, giving him life advice to always help people. One day he kind of saves Cory from some hooligans harassing her by taking a beatdown. It is later revealed that his grandfather passed away and left his property to Yuya, which leads to his parents disowning him for not being able to access the inheritance. Left alone, unloved and bullied, he gets frustrated and punches his bathroom wall, which leads to his grandfather's hidden antique room. He finds a door that leads to another fantasy world with magic and a system. He levels up there, but unbeknownst to him, his stats carry over to the real world, causing his body to transform into a Chad. When he returns to school, everyone is shocked and his siblings are salty to see the change. We commence with Yuya, all suited and Buddha, ready to enter the fantasy realm. Just as he opens the door, he recalls what Owen had said to him prior. Owen had enlightened him that the area in which he resides is known as the darkest regions, and amongst all territories the darkest region is said to be top class with regards to danger and with all those monsters Yuya defeats so easily. If they were to appear within a large city in a pack, they could destroy the entire city. The flashback ends with Yuya wondering how exactly the sage was living in such a dangerous place. After making his way into the forest and defeating a few monsters, he calls it a day, though he is slightly disappointed that he didn't come across any formidable foes deep inside the woodlands. While returning home, his attention is drawn by a little squeal. He rushes to the scene and finds a king orc with 20,000 attack power manhandling what appears to be a lost pup. Yuya lurks in the background in his camouflage state, observing the beatdown. Even though he feels sorry for the little creature, he contemplates if his current power level is enough to take on the king orc. Since he feels like he would be useless in this situation, he carries on his way back home, but his conscience stops him from taking another step. When the pup continues to cry out loud, Yuya then thinks on what his grandfather would do in this situation and acts accordingly. He summons his spear and launches it towards the orc with the hopes of drawing its attention to him. As he dashes forward with adrenaline sword in hand, he soon realizes that the monster has already been vanquished with his first attack. This comes as a surprise to him, given that his stats were far below his opponent, but he remembers pulling off a similar feat against a high-level bloody ogre when he was just at level 1, so he attributes his victory to the spear made by the sage. His thoughts are interrupted by a cute growling sound. As he turns around, he is met by the frowning face of the pup, who perceives Yuya to be an enemy, but he opens his item box and removes from a healing potion he would like to administrate to the damaged animal, but it stands firmly on its grounds of defense until it passes out due to its injuries and fatigue. He quickly rushes over and revives it back to full health with the magic medicine. The animal wakes up and takes an instant liking to Yuya, which isn't surprising since he is the embodiment of RIS. We come to learn that the pup is actually an orphan black Finra, as significant power and high intelligence with the ability to understand human speech. Yuya decides to adopt the Finra and takes it as an ally, since he possesses a skill that allows him to take monsters as companions. Now that they are a unit, he settles on the name Knight for the Black Fenra, which seems to get it excited. The two make their way back to the cabin, where they analyze the items obtained from defeating the king orc. For some reason, one of the items extracted from it was a hairbrush, said to be so rare that it is acquired only once every few thousand years, and among the attributes of this hairbrush is that it nourishes the hair and revives bald and thinning hair back to full lushness, and as such the item is sought after in extremely high prices by nobles who are facing hair issues. Yuya takes advantage of its qualities and uses it to brush his new pet. As he does so, he checks his stats only to see that nothing has increased despite him defeating a high-level monster. Nevertheless, he brushes it off for now and declares that he will figure out how leveling up works later down the line. He takes Knight with him to the real world and says his goodbyes before making his way to school. Upon arriving, Yuya informs his classmates of his new family addition and asks if there is a pet shop nearby. Keed is a bit too curious to know how his dog looks like and asks if he has a photo, but Yuya tells her that he does not even have a smartphone, which takes them all by surprise. They bring the topic back to the pet shop and inform him that there is one not so far from the school. He volunteers to take him there and help him out, and selecting a few items, Yuya later arrives home from school with a shopping bag full of items for Knight. His canine friend welcomes him with a warm embrace, after which Yuya places a collar around its neck ready to be taken out for a walk. They go on a light stroll in the evening sunshine through the park and surprise surprise, all the thirsty ladies are there in numbers fangirling over the king of Riz, and his pet a man with zero game walks so close to him hoping that a bit of you as Riz will rub off on him. He later bumps into Kaori, who is also out for a walk. He introduces Night to her, and the two seem to be fond of each other as she pets the Finra. Everyone stops in their track to admire the cuteness going on in that location. Kaori wants to know what breed Night is, but Yuya simply tells her that he has no idea. Their attention is drawn when someone calls out to Yuya, and it is none other than the model Mio. He introduces the two ladies to each other, and Kaori seems to be a little bit tense, perhaps a bit concerned or jealous from the presence of Mio. As the three of them interact, people cannot help but stare at the level of beauty they are witnessing before their eyes. Prior to leaving, Mio expresses her hopes to bump into Yuya again whenever she is out on a walk. No sooner does she leave does Kaori inquire Yuya on whether he and Neo are dating, but he promptly denies it and informs her that they only worked together that one time for a photo shoot. Besides, he feels like he is not good enough for her. Kaori strongly disagrees as she tells him not to say such a thing. He is a bit baffled by her reaction, and he still cannot tell that she likes him. Their little moment is disrupted when a lady who screams at the top of her lungs to alert everyone that a shady-looking man has unlawfully snatched her purse. Yuya gives the command to Nike to chase down the culprit and bring him to justice. All the while he makes his way with Kaori to check up on the old lady who was attacked by the degenerates. Soon after, Night can be seen from a distance dragging the criminal like a meal towards his master. When they get in close proximity, Yuya tells Kaori to call the police. This seems to catch the attention of the criminal, who breaks free from Knight's grasp and dashes with Nice Senpai and almost makes Kaori reincarnate into another world, but Yuya comes in like the absolute Sigma he is and stops the attack with a strong grip. He then proceeds to showcase Lesson 1 in quantum physics for the crowd to witness. After apprehending the culprit, the police soon arrive and take him into custody. Yuya and his canine companion later make their way into the woods with the intention of conquering a certain area so that they can proceed further into the deepest parts of the forest. They take a leap without a second thought, and the duo showcase their effective team working ability as they first deal with a jack goblin before taking out a bear goat looking like creature. Lurking in the darkness is another king orc, so Yuya gives the floor to Night to take his revenge, and let me tell you, revenge has never felt so sweet as the canine eliminates the king orc in spectacular fashion and then lets out a howling cry of victory. The duo continue to make their way deeper into the forest when they come across a crystal deer with a power level of 630 and possessing an absurd amount of magical power. Though Yuya is in his camouflage state, the deer can sense him. This completely ruins his plan of a surprise attack, so he reveals himself in full and goes on the offensive with Night. The deer accepts their challenge as it lets out a deafening battle cry before charging at them. They evade the attack and Yuya prompts his pet to pounce, but the deer blocks with the red side of its horns. He tries to provide support, but the monster repels him with a fiery blast and then follows up with an incredible magical beam attack. Dr. Riz falls back to analyze the situation and concludes that he and Night will have to divide up their roles to have any chance in defeating this dual-wielding magic deer. Yuya commands his pet to create an opening for him to land the final blow. Night goes forth to execute the plan while avoiding the large-scale attack from the deer. The femur swoops in and injures the deer, giving you the opportunity to finish it once and for all. He notes that as they venture further and further into the forest, they will need to be more flexible with their tactics. He approaches the items dropped by the deer, and an object in particular catches his attention. He analyzes it, and it turns out that the deer dropped a fully functioning hot bath as one of the items. Yuya and Night later retire back to the safety of their cabin to enjoy a hot bath after a hard day's work. They enter the woods the next day and are challenged by a needle roller who gives them a slight run for their money, but Yuya sees that its movements have become sloppy, so he baits it to crash into a rock before ending it in a tag team effort with Night. He takes a break nearby and then checks his stats only to see that it has increased. Not only that, but he also gained many skills too. Yuya is surprised to see that his status increase in tandem with Ninth's stats. Though he is a bit confused, he does not push on further to understand why. They prepare to leave and call it a day, but the rock in front of them crumbles to reveal a tunnel which they take the pleasure of exploring. As they make their way further, he takes a page out of Call of Duty and activates his heartbeat sensor, which shows no sign of life within the area. Their path is guided by A spontaneous combustion of fire which leads them to an opening night does what canines do best and runs off to find something. When Yuya pulls closer, he is met with a corpse, but before he can investigate, the femur draws his attention to a book titled The Book of the Sage. He opens it and gasps in shock, and its content elsewhere in a city. Two people in cloaks interact as one of them wants the other to take on a job of eliminating a particular somebody that brings the episode to an end.